Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, streaming, all sorts of good stuff. And good news, ladies and gentlemen, you may be back to work today, but at least Robert Meyer Burnett is coming along with you. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, I'm doing great. It's another great week. As they said in Aliens, which just celebrated its 35th anniversary, another glorious day in the Corps.
I love being in the Corps. And Rob, it's good to have you here today, too. And it's good to have all you guys here today. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off the show in the first half, taking some predetermined lined up topics. And then in the second half of the show, we'll take your live comments and questions. We'll tell you a little bit later how to get those live comments and questions here on the show. And by the way, Carlos Quideza sends in a super chat badge. Thank you, Carlos, for supporting us, man. Appreciate that very much. Good to have you guys here. I see somebody in the live chat is saying they're all watching all the way from Kenya. Good to have you here, Kevin, writing in from Kenya. And it's good to have all you guys here. Now, listen, before we get into our main topics here today, there's a couple of things off the top to talk about. And let's talk about those. And the first one is this. You know, Rob, I am very pessimistic. I think that's fair to say when it comes to Netflix original movies. I mean, every once in a while, they have what we call a diamond in the rough. Like once in a while, there'll be an Old Guard or The Irishman. Or, you know, once in a while, they'll put one out that's really quite good. But I feel like 9 out of every 10 of them just are completely terrible. But there was one I was really looking forward to. And that one that I've been really looking forward to is Gunpowder Milkshake. This is one with Karen Gillan. It's got an incredible cast. It looks kind of like a female John Wick kind of movie. Very excited to watch it. So I sat down this weekend and I watched Gunpowder Milkshake. We were going to watch it a little bit later. We tried to watch some of the WWE Money in the Bank thing last night, but the streaming on Peacock was terrible, so we abandoned that and went and started watching Gunpowder Milkshake instead. And I was really, really excited about watching this. Again, I thought the trailers were great. I love Karen Gillan really a lot. I mean, I've loved her, obviously, as Nebula. I never saw her in Doctor Who because I don't watch Doctor Who. I really liked her in Jumanji. I think she's an up-and-coming star. I think she's going to be great. This movie is terrible. Dude, this movie is terrible. And I wanted to like it so much. I so badly wanted to like this thing. And it's just awful. Like right from the beginning as the dialogue starts, I'm just like going, oh my God, who wrote this? Probably somebody who's a 20 times better writer than me, but this is probably just a bad day at the office. And it just came across badly. And I went to the Rotten Tomatoes thing to see it. I am flabbergasted that this thing has 68%. Because, I mean, granted, 68's not a great score, but I don't get it. Now, the audience rating on it is 50. I even think that's too high. I don't, look, all film is subjective. And in its benefit, I will say this. The action, first of all, the action in the first part of the movie is really lame. The action in the second part of the movie gets notably better. And it's always great seeing Michelle Yeoh in anything and Angela Bassett in anything. I mean, yeah, and it's very, very stylized, and I understand that. They were going for a certain style. You got Paul Giamatti in there. I understand the stylings, but it was so difficult to just listen to. Like, just trying to hear them talk was bad because the dialogue was terrible. And I'm going to tell you what, Karen Gillan, while I am a big fan of hers right now, I'm going to tell you this. I did not think she was very good in this. You know, when you look around, like, you know, you got Queen Cersei in there, Lena Headey, and you got Angela Bassett, of course, and Michelle Yeoh. And the acting in it's great. By the way, the little girl from My Spy is in this, and she's actually a really good child actor. I liked her too. But I don't know if the way they were directing her or whatever, but Karen did not come across as strong in this. And I think she's great. I think she has so much charisma and charm and personality when I see her on screen, but for whatever reason in Gunpowder Milkshake, it just wasn't there. It's a simple enough, nice enough little premise. and while doing a job, she ends up killing the wrong person, and her organization just washed their hands of her, and now she's on the run from everybody. And so it's a good enough, straightforward thing, plausible enough, kind of like in John Wick, the way they set up like this mythology with the Continental Hotel. They also try to set up a little bit of a mythology with like this diner where all the assassins go and hang out, but you got to check your weapons at the door when you come in. And they try to set up a little bit of that too, but man, it just didn't work. Again, some of the performances were really good. The little girl's really charming. The action in the second half of the movie gets much better than the action in the first half of the movie. But on the weak side, the dialogue was so bad. It was really hard to watch sometimes. A lot of it just came across as very thin. I didn't think Gillian was great in this one, even though I think she's a great actress. This was not her best day, and that could have had a lot to do with the director. Overall, it was just difficult to watch. It was hard to watch and get through. Rob, I don't remember what your expectations were, because I remember we talked about the trailer. I can't remember what your expectations were. Now, you haven't had a chance to see it yet, but what have your expectations been for a Gunpowder Milkshake?
Well, they were kind of high, John, I got to say, because the director who directed this, he's an Israeli director and made a film back in 2013 that I loved called Big Bad Wolves. And I had a lot of expectations for this, and the trailers looked great. And the cast looked like it was a lot of fun, but if you're hearing that the script is not great, kind of bums me out. Got to tell you, I'm gonna still watch it though.
You should. Yeah. And everybody, listen, don't just be turned off because I didn't like it. Like, all film's subjective. If you've been looking forward to it, you should give it a shot yourself, because maybe it'll work for you. All I know is that I was very excited for this. I loved everybody involved. I thought it looked like it was going to be a real cool kind of female, different John Wick sort of thing. It just did not work. So chalk another one up for really bad Netflix original movies, in my opinion. But remember, take that with a grain of salt, guys. A bunch of other critics, 68% of them seem to like it. 50% of the audience say they like it. So maybe you'll like it. Give it a shot. If you have, what did you guys think about Gunpowder Milkshake? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's do one more thing off the top, and that is this. Speaking of movies I've been kind of looking forward to, Rob, and I know one you've been looking forward to as well, is Snake Eyes. Just first of all, doing a Snake Eyes movie is cool enough as it is. Then all of a sudden, they go and get the star from Crazy Rich Asians, and we all like him very much, so that's exciting. Then you get the guy from Warrior playing Storm Shadow. That's exciting. The first trailer came out, and I thought it was pretty good. I thought Henry Golding looked really solid in it. You and I both liked what we saw. Well, today they put out what they are calling the final trailer. The final trailer for Snake Eyes came out this morning, and I'm all on board this movie. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Rob, that I think this is the best looking movie we've got coming all year. I'm not going to say that, not at all. But this looks like fun. I think this looks like a lot of fun. And again, I've become a big fan of the show Warrior. So seeing this guy in there playing Storm Shadow is great. They give us that great moment at the end of the trailers. Call me Storm Shadow. I'm like,
oh, come on.
I'm not going to lie, Rob. The hair on my arm stood up a little bit. Actually, standing up a little, getting some goosebumps when he's sitting there. I am Storm Shadow. Look, does this look like an Oscar-winning film? No. But does it look like they just, hey, look, it's the characters people love about G.I. Joe. The thing that we all remember about G.I. Joe is the individual characters. Take a couple of those, give us like some good solid action, give us a fairly serviceable plot that we can put in there, make some decent performances, and you're going to deliver us a good time. And I'll tell you what, again, Oscar-winning film, this does not look like, but this looks like fun. And I was enjoying watching this, and I really like the trailer. And I got to tell you, I am not just looking forward to this movie. I am excited to watch Snake Eyes now, even though, like a lot of people, Rob, when they first announced they were doing it, I was like, really? You want to just do a solo Snake, the guy who doesn't talk? You're just going to do a slow little Snake Eyes movie, right? But I'll tell you what, I've come all the way around. I'm now excited for this. Rob, you had a chance to see the new trailer. What did you think of it?
John, you know what I always say? Movies are at least 25% better that have ninjas in them. and this movie, when I'm hearing Storm Shadow say, we have trained ninjas for the last 600 years. I everything in this movie, the action looks great. cinematography looks great. I love the actors playing the roles, and it just looks like ninja. And I'm like, this movie was made for me. This movie is it would have to be really, really bad for me not to have a good time, because man, does this movie look good.
What part was your favorite part of the trailer, of the new one that we just saw?
Well, look, anytime swords and motorcycles are involved, we saw that in John Wick 3. It looks like they took a page from that book. And there's dudes flying off motorcycles. Look, always, I just don't know why people haven't figured out that samurai swords in the wheels of motorcycles going at speed always winds up badly for the people on the motorcycles. I've needed to see more of this in my life. I'm glad they're doing this in this film, and I just want to see more of it. But also, when they have like 100 ninjas in a room, which they kind of do in this, bring it on. And then, of course, as we talked about, the Baroness.
Oh,
Baroness.
Whew.
She kind of has a Lisa vibe from Blackpink, the
Listen,
band. And I'm a huge fan of Lisa.
we all know you love Blackpink. I will say this, like the Baroness, I can't remember the name of the actress who plays it, but made up the way she is as Baroness. Look, I know Cobra is evil and world domination, despots. I get it. I'm not going to lie to you. She could probably convince me to join Cobra.
I'm in. You know what? She wouldn't even have to twist my arm, or maybe she would.
Anyway, I thought the trailer was great. Question is for you guys. Did you guys have a chance to see this new Snake Eyes trailer? I have gone from being very, why the hell are they making a Snake Eyes movie, to straight up, can't wait to watch this. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. What did you guys think? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that down and out of the way, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with our main topics. Whenever you come across a big topic, issue, or story that you think we need to have as a main topic on the show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's go into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by one of our Patreon supporters, Ian A. Barth. Well, thank you for being a Patreon supporter, Ian. And Ian writes, "Morning, John and Rob. I was wondering if you saw the report in Variety saying that the Hollywood Foreign Press has officially banned its members from receiving any gifts, trips, and other free items from studios to avoid bribery and swaying the vote during the Golden Globes. Does this finally mark the beginnings of the Globes holding more weight? Thanks, and stay filthy." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And by the way, RM sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, RM. All right. For those of you who don't know, and most of you probably do, I think the Golden Globes are a joke. I think they put on a fantastic show. They do. Look, I'll say it straight up. They put on a better show. I think they put on a better show than the Oscars do. The Oscars are credible. The Golden Globes are not. And the main reason that the Golden Globes have no credibility whatsoever is because when you look at the Oscars is a voting body of 7,000 film industry professionals, writers, directors, executives, costume designers, musicians, publicists, blah, blah, all types of people from all different areas and avenues of the filmmaking art make up 7,000 members. The Golden Globes is 65 people who happen to be film journalists working for outlets that are outside of the U.S., but they themselves live in it. Did you get all that? The Golden Globes is roughly about 65 to 70 film journalists who work for publications that are outside of the U.S., but they themselves live inside the U.S. And there's 60 of them. 60 people sit in a room, whatever. By the way, Aiden Foley sends in a super chat badge in the live chat as well. Thank you, Aiden. And this has always been a problem, Rob, because, in a situation like that, if you can influence 15 people, well, all of a sudden you've just influenced 25% of the voting base of the Golden Globes. Whereas with the Oscars, you want to influence 25% of the voting base of the Golden Globes, you got to do like 1,750 of them or something like that. It's just such a broad body that when you have a body that size, it insulates you a lot. Not perfectly, but it insulates you from any outside influences that way. The Golden Globes is that. Now, they've just implemented this new rule. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety who writes, one of the biggest knocks against the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, that is the organization behind the Golden Globes. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association is the organization that puts on the Golden Globes. One of the biggest knocks against the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, that its members can be swayed by trips, gifts, and other freebies, is going away. The organization confirmed in a statement on Friday that it has approved new gift, travel, and conflict of interest policies. Under these new policies, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association members shall not be permitted to accept promotional materials or other gifts from studios, publicists, actors, directors, or others associated with the motion picture and television programs. Of course, Rob, there was one of the big controversies out of the Golden Globes this year, because the Golden Globes now also covers television, was there was a show called Emily in Paris. I believe that's the name of the show, Emily in Paris. And Anne watched a couple of episodes, ditched on it. I watched her watch one episode. I thought it was terrible. And apparently a lot of people thought it was awful. But it got nominated for Best Comedy Series. And then it turns out, which had a lot of people scratching their heads. And it turned out over, I think it was 20 to 30 members of the Hollywood Press Association literally got flown to Paris, put up in a triple star, French hotel, was given this lavish weekend away in Paris. This isn't like, Rob, your stereotypical junket visit or something from a press person. When you go and cover these things as a press, you're flown economy, you're put into a quick hotel, you get about 5 hours sleep, and as soon as they're done with you, they're putting your ass back on the plane and flying you back. This was different. And then it became, so this is why Emily in Paris. But we've seen things like this before. Is this a good move by them to put in these new rules to get rid of that kind of stuff? Absolutely, it's a good move. Absolutely it is. No doubt about it. The Emily in Paris situation is a good example of that. So I applaud the Hollywood Foreign Press, which still doesn't have a single black member, by the way. But I applaud the Hollywood Foreign Press for implementing this new rule. Now, as far as the question that Ian was asking, is like, does this give it more credibility? Rob, to me, the answer is no. And the reason to me it still doesn't have credibility is because, for me personally, the reason they didn't have credibility wasn't because you could so easily influence these 60 suckers. But it was because, again, of that whole starting premise. The Oscars is 7,000 film industry professionals that go in and do this. This just happens to be this little club of 60 people who happen to work for foreign trade outlets, and they just happen to live in the U.S. Quite frankly, I think the Broadcast Film Critics Association has way more credibility, and I think they're losing credibility, but I think they have way more credibility than the Golden Globes. So the foundational thing about there's just no reason any importance should be ascribed to the Golden Globes. At least in the Oscars, you're being recognized by your fellow actors, writers, costume designers, sound designers, singers, film executives, cinematographers. You're being recognized by your fellow film professionals. This thing is a group of 60, 70 people. It's never meant much. So, good move? I think so. Does it make a big difference? Honestly, I think not. Rob, you've heard about this. What do you make of this move?
I think you're exactly right. And I think, like you said, the credibility here is how many people are actually voting on these awards. I do think that the idea of the Hollywood Foreign Press, that how American entertainment is judged by the rest of the world, has a very valid angle to it. But the problem is, it doesn't seem like much of the world's really having much input. I mean, I would think that what the Hollywood Foreign Press should do that would make it much more credible is expand its membership. Find out, like we talked about, how we have a viewer from Kenya. Is there any members of the foreign press in Kenya? How do the Kenyans view American entertainment? And does it matter? And I think that when it comes to diversity, I'm all about diversity of thought and diversity of opinion. That's what I think we need more of in the world, because we don't hear enough of it. And the Hollywood Foreign Press should expand their membership. And really, if it's called the Hollywood Foreign Press, how about every country on the planet should have members as part of their voting body? That would be exciting. That would be something I could get behind. And that would be something I think that everybody would welcome.
I agree. I mean, that is one of their biggest problems right now, is the fact that they have no representation in there. I mean, look, if you're a group of 5 people and you don't happen to have a black member, oh, yeah, it's 5 people. Okay, I get that. If you have 10 people and you don't happen to have, you claim to be this industry, you represent the industry. If you got 10 people in there and you don't have a single black person on it, then you start going, that's starting to look a little. If you have 15 people and still no representation of this industry whatsoever, that's like, okay, this is a problem. But once you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 individuals in there, and you're all look the same, and you have no representation, and you're not actually representing, I like the way you put it, Rob, you're not actually representing the global view of American Hollywood, which is where the value of the Golden Globes could come into play, then there's a problem, don't you think?
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's not even about skin color. It's about culture. Like when you go to, there's many different countries that have people that have the same skin tone, but they have different cultures. And how do they view stories? And how do they view movies? And how do they view entertainment? And, we want the globe to judge us. People in, how many different states or different countries around the planet are not part of the Hollywood Foreign Press? Well, what they should want is those people. Like, I would want to know how American entertainment is viewed around the world. And I think it's important that we are judged that way. So if we're not doing good, we can do better. And that's what the Hollywood Foreign about is, you go around the world and everybody sees America in a slightly different way. And that's true of our entertainment as well. It's actually a cultural issue. And I want to see more of that. And I think there's a lot of, American entertainment, every part of the globe is affected by our biggest export, which is our entertainment.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that we need to hear more from the rest of the world about what they think of our entertainment. And the Hollywood Foreign Press, I don't even think they have as many members as there are countries around the globe.
They don't.
Like by half. Like they don't even have 50. They don't even represent 50% of the countries around the globe. That's a problem. Until the Hollywood Foreign Press has a member from every country on the planet Earth that is not the United States, they're not doing their job.
I agree. And I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying Greece has to have the same number of representatives in the Hollywood Foreign Press as, say, Germany does.
No.
I'm not, but at least have some representation. If you are the Hollywood Foreign Press, then represent that. And if they could, look, I'll tell you what, they would go a long way with me. Not that they give 2 shits what John Campea thinks, but I'm just saying they could go a long way with a fan like me if they expanded to 300 members. And every country or practically every, maybe not every country in the world even has movie theaters, but close to every country in the world had some representation on there. That would go a long way with me, because I love the way you put it, Rob, culture over color. I think that would work a lot better.
Yeah. Also, for instance, I don't know if there's any, Iran has some pretty amazing filmmakers, a few that have made their mark at the Oscars. I know that Iran also has a big car culture. I would like to read Iranian movie reviews about the Fast and the Furious franchise. And I don't think I can, but I would like to. I want to know what they think of these movies in Iran. And I think that's important.
All right. Question is, guys, what do you think about this move? Look, to not be pessimistic, I think this is a positive move on the part of the Hollywood Foreign Press. This is a good rule to implement. It doesn't address the core problems about what their organization is. A good move, yes, but it doesn't fix the problems. Question is, what do you guys think about this? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. By the way, our friend Epic Dub Time sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, Epic Dub Time. Appreciate that, man. With that down, guys, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Josh. And Josh writes, "Hey, John. Colin Farrell recently did an interview where he stated that he only had a few scenes in the Batman movie, 5 to 6 scenes or about 9 minutes. Does this change your perception on all the characters in the movie? Will everyone just have very short roles with Robert and Zoe being the only real main characters?" All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, Josh. And of course, look, we've been talking a lot lately, and we will continue talking a lot about the upcoming Batman movie. I'm obviously very excited about this. I wanted the Ben Affleck version, but hey, if it can't be Ben, Matt Reeves is a great guy to get in there and do it. I've loved all the casting we've heard out of this. All of it. From Jeffrey Wright, obviously starting with Robert Pattinson, and then getting somebody like Colin Farrell playing Penguin. We got a glimpse of Colin Farrell playing the Penguin in that trailer that they dropped at DC Fandom last year, and loved it. Been looking forward to him. However, as the person who just wrote in suggests, it doesn't look like Colin Farrell's actually in much of this movie at all. This comes to us from the folks over at IndieWire who write, I still can't believe that's Colin Farrell, who writes, "I'm only in it for 5 or 6 scenes, so I can't wait to see the film because it won't be ruined by my presence." I love that. Really, it's a freebie to me. I'll get a little bit uncomfortable for the effing 9 minutes that I have, and then the rest of it, I cannot wait to see how he, Matt Reeves, brought this world to life, he says. All right, so there's a couple of aspects in here for us to look at and think about for a second. Number one is, okay, he's only in it for 5 or 6 scenes. Really, when you think about it, that's going to feel like more. When a character gets like a full, like he's saying 9 minutes, when a character gets a full 9 minutes of screen time, that actually feels much more than it is. Like, it'll feel like he's in it for more than that. So am I terribly concerned that this sounds like he's in it a tiny bit? No, because listen, a tiny bit is like Judi Dench showing up in Shakespeare in Love for like 3 minutes of screen time and getting an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. This is triple that. So on the one hand, it's not that tiny. It's really not that tiny. That being said, it is a little bit less than what I was hoping for. I'm not going to lie, because I am a big Colin Farrell fan. I think this guy's an underrated performer. I thought he deserved an Academy Award nomination for Saving Mr. Banks that he did with Tom Hanks. I honestly, no hyperbole, I thought he deserved an Academy Award nomination for that role. I think he's really a terrific actor, and I was looking forward to seeing a lot of them. We're not going to get a lot. It's still not too tiny. Does this change my perception of the movie? Do I think this means other supporting characters like Riddler are going to get less time? I don't think so. Because Riddler, clearly from the trailer, looks like he's our main antagonist. So I think we're going to get a good amount of him. We're going to get a good amount of Batgirl. We're going to get a good amount of Robert Pattinson. So while I'm a little bit disappointed, Rob, I'm not going to lie, to hear we're not going to get more Colin Farrell goodness, it's not exactly a tiny amount. And I don't think that really suggests how much or how little time other performers in the movie are going to get. Rob, what do you make of this?
Well, same thing. I mean, if they're great scenes, I mean, it really depends on what's happening. The scenes could all be 5 minutes long, and that's 30 minutes. So if there's 6 scenes, which is a substantial part of a movie, I mean, I think that it might really seem to some people that, well, that could only be a few minutes. That's true. But it really depends on what his role is. Right. I mean, if you think about it, other than the lead of a movie, how many scenes does anyone get in a film? And if you really started counting what I mean, there's apparently a lot of villains in this movie. So we'll see how it plays out. I never worry about these things, John, until we actually see the film itself.
That's probably a good thing. I'm not going to lie, though, because I am a big Colin Farrell fan. I was hoping to see a little bit more of him, but you're right. 5, 6 scenes, 9 full minutes of screen time, maybe it'll be a little bit more than that, is actually pretty decent for a supporting role, and he's not even the main villain in it, so maybe they'll save him for something else a little bit later down the line. The question is for you guys. What do you think of Colin Farrell's comments? Does it worry you that you're not going to see more of him? Did you even care in the first place if we saw a lot of him? I really did want to see. Do you maybe think that's still a good amount of time? Maybe you think it's not enough. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets sent to us by Steve Calderon, who writes, Space Jam 2 beats Black Widow in a surprise victory at this weekend's box office. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The sequel brought in $31.6 million, the best opening for a family film during the pandemic. However, with the film also available on HBO Max, do you think it will be able to recoup its $150 million budget and marketing costs? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, Space Jam 2 is out. Space Jam 2 is out. Rob, I'll tell you what, I had very, very low expectations of this. I didn't think the trailers looked particularly good. And then I watched it. And yeah, it's awful. This movie's, it's awful. I am a big LeBron James fan. I think LeBron James might be my second favorite basketball player of all time. I'm a big LeBron James fan. But an actor he should never try to be. Just like I should never try to be an actor either. But yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Now, I'll say this, though. There are moments in this movie that had me grinning. Actually, Rob, the most fun for me in this movie was as the game is going on, and the game itself is practically half the movie. I mean, it felt like the game itself it was almost like half the movie, but half the fun of watching this movie is picking out all the cameos in the crowd. Like, you're watching this crowd and you're like, it's the freaking Wicked Witch of the West over there. And it's Agent Smith from the Matrix over there. And they're all over. I went through it twice, and I'm sure I didn't even catch like 1/8 of all the little cameo appearances that pop up there. None of them have any lines, obviously. You just see them. You just see them somewhere in the background. And they go through all of the properties. Look, some people have criticized this movie as saying it's just a giant commercial for Warner Brothers. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. This whole movie is nothing but one big giant Warner Brothers commercial. That's all it is. Commercially and advertising and promoting all their various properties or whatever. But I'll give it its due. There's a few moments that are kind of clever, a few moments that are kind of cute. There's a cameo moment where somebody walks into the locker room. I won't give anything away, but a cameo of somebody walking into the locker room that I thought was actually a pretty good moment. So there are moments. There are definitely moments, but also overall terrible. Now, that being said, I thought this movie was going to make very little money. Rob, you and I talked about this, about how much we thought, and I thought it would make, I didn't think it was going to do all that well. And it hasn't done great, but it's done better than I thought, making $31.6 million. Now, of course, I've had people writing into me today, Rob, saying, ha, Looney Tunes beat Black Widow. I'm like, well, no, hold a second, back up. Black Widow made over $80 million opening weekend. Space Jam made almost a third of that, less than half. So no, it didn't really beat Black Widow, but it did beat Black Widow on Black Widow's second weekend. Now, we're going to talk about the Black Widow situation in just a bit. So the fact of the matter is, Black Widow or not, this movie made $31 million, which I have to tell you is more than I thought it was going to do. And I think that tells us something about people who are wanting to get back into theaters. This is a family film. You know, there are parents who watched the original Space Jam, now wanted to share a second one with their offspring. I get it. But again, I still didn't think it was going to do this well. I did not think it was going to do this well. And while it's not great, it's not bad. Will it recoup a $150 million budget, taking into consideration there's going to be a bit of a theatrical cut, plus you got to take into consideration the marketing costs? No, this movie's not going to break even. This movie's going to lose money. You need to you got to hope to at least make 1/3 to half of your budget, minimum that, in order, if you really have a good shot of breaking even and being profitable. This thing is just not going to be profitable, unfortunately. But I mean, look, give it its due, man. It did way better than I thought it would. Rob, were you surprised? Or were you pretty much expecting this thing was going to come in around 30? Because I honestly probably would have pegged it a good 30% lower. I would have probably pegged it around 20. What did you think?
Dude, you know, I always get a lot of guff for not loving Goonies. The second movie on my list that I don't love is the original Space Jam. I had limited and low expectations for this. And everything I've read about it and the box office, I'm surprised it made as much as it made. And the thing is, there's a lot of work that went into the production of this movie. These are not easy movies to make. This is not a movie that was just tossed off. This brings to bear unbelievable amounts of technology and creative power to make. But why? I don't know. And no, I'm surprised it made as much as it did. And God bless everybody who loves this franchise. God bless you all.
Here's the question, though. Okay, 31, that's more than we thought it would. My take on it, though, is that it is nowhere near enough for this thing to break even. I mean, am I being pessimistic? Because I don't see this thing doing well weekend 2. It's just not very good, but some people are liking it, and that's great. All film is subjective. Can you see this thing with a $150 million production budget, not counting marketing? Can you see this thing breaking even or even being profitable, just taking in $30 million in its opening weekend? Can that happen?
Yeah. You know what? Here's the thing about a movie like this. Because of its subject matter, I can see it having a long and lucrative life, because I think that a lot of people will buy this movie when it's available on VOD, downloads. Parents, this will probably be a perennial favorite. It'll run on HBO forever. And it is part of the Space Jam franchise. I mean, people are going to love this movie. And I think that especially younger kids, maybe. So I could see it perhaps breaking even, but I'll bet this movie was a lot more expensive, because I'm like, I know it's Warner Brothers, but do they have to pay a licensing fee for all the characters that appear in this movie? How can this movie ever break even? They're going to be paying rights owners forever, but who knows?
Unless they were only putting characters in it that Warner Brothers already owns the rights for.
Owns. I know.
Which is kind of what I think they probably did. But again, better than I thought. But I still think this is going to end up being a disaster for them. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe this thing will have better legs than we're anticipating. More people like it than I'm the guy who should be predisposed because I'm a huge LeBron James fan. Like I said, my second all-time favorite basketball player. Somebody in the live chat was saying, John, who's your favorite? My actual all-time favorite basketball player was Larry Bird. Larry Bird is my all-time favorite. But LeBron is probably my second favorite all-time basketball player. So I was kind of happy when they first announced it. I just thought it was terrible. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about that $30 million opening? $31.6 million may not sound like a lot, but I got to tell you, man, that blows away the expectation I had for it initially. It's better than I thought it would do. Still don't think it's going to break even. Maybe you do. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 4, shall we? And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Raymond Ray Reddington, who writes, Black Widow had a huge domestic release in theaters, and it was bigger worldwide, but the drop-off is as huge as F9's second week. But is Disney facing a bigger problem with piracy from Premier Access offerings, ultra-clean copies for people who screen record, and curb sales as new markets receive the film in theaters? Case in point, piracy sites are offering Black Widow downloads with Chinese subtitles. As Aaron Cummings would say, just saying, have a great day. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, obviously, we were just talking about Space Jam came in at number 1 this weekend in its opening weekend, making $31.6 million. But what is really interesting is that Black Widow made, I think, 29 something million, somewhere in that neighborhood. The thing is, Black Widow came in second place in its second weekend, taking the largest drop in the Marvel Cinematic Universal Week 2 history. No movie in the MCU has ever dropped as much as Black Widow just did in its second weekend. Now, there's a couple of really interesting articles from Deadline here that want to go into this. And so there's a couple of questions. The main one, of course, being, Rob, is why? Because it's not like this was a badly reviewed movie. This is a very positively reviewed movie. And more importantly, the audience scores have been even higher than the critic scores have been. So you have a movie that is extremely well received by the audience and the critics. It had a decent opening weekend, very strong, especially in the post-COVID era. So why would this overwhelmingly positively reviewed and positively received movie take such a massive dip? Let's go over to Deadline for a minute and read a little bit in length, because I thought they made some really, really great points here. Let's start with this. And I'll see if I can get this to be a little bit bigger for you guys watching at home, so you can get a little bit better of an idea of what's being written here. It says, if Disney keeps this up, the whole theatrical / PVOD day and date release model, maybe it won't be so scary for rival studios in the future to follow a Marvel movie in its second weekend at the box office. The studio's Marvel Cinematic Universe standalone original movie, Black Widow, had a great fall in its second session at the domestic box office, down a whopping 67%. Now, to put that into perspective, that is 5 full percent lower than the second biggest drop-off in Marvel Cinematic box office history, which was Ant-Man 2, which I thought was really good. But Ant-Man 2 took a 62% drop. This thing passed that by a full 5%. Anyway, a 67% drop with $26.25 million at the second weekend box office. Black Widow lost the #1 spot to Warner Brothers' day-and-date release theatrical HBO Max release Space Jam: A New Legacy, which opened at 31.65. If you want to know what the negative impact is by having a Marvel movie available in homes and in the theaters at the same time, well, here it is. That's the steepest second weekend box office ever for a Disney-distributed MCU title, beating Ant-Man 2 and the Wasp, which came in at 62%. There's a couple of interesting things to note here that were brought up in another article by Deadline, because jumping all over this was NATO, the North American Theater Owners Association. This is the organization that runs all the movie theaters in the world. And you knew they were getting ready to jump all over this failure, because they came out swinging. They came out swinging hard. All right. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety, who wrote, sorry, wrong one. This is the one that came to us from over at Deadline, is that they're talking about NATO. And they're saying, listen, if you want to talk about what went wrong, and you want to talk about why this is the biggest collapse and biggest second weekend failure that Marvel's ever had, especially considering that this thing was a big success with the audience and the critics and stuff like that, all you got to do is look at this stupid, idiotic Disney Premier Access thing. That's all you got to do, according to them. Let's take a look at some of the things that they had to say. In a press release dropped this afternoon, following our analysis of what went sideways with the Marvel Cinematic Universe title, NATO, again, that's the North American Theater Owners, or they've changed it to now National Association of Theater Owners is what it's called now, I believe, asks, how can a well-reviewed, well-received, highly anticipated Marvel title underperform, leading to a first weekend Friday to Saturday collapse of 41% and a 67% drop in weekend 2? NATO comes to the same conclusions as we at Deadline did in regards to Black Widow getting her legs picked off. Piracy and Disney Plus at-home cannibalization, which impacts not just the box office, but the movie's subsequent home window release as well. And that is interesting that they brought that part up, because that's a part that we don't often discuss, right? Hold on a second. Let me just bring this up here. That's a part of it we don't often discuss, is how this affected home video. Okay, let's go over to the Campea Classroom just for a quick second here, okay? What went wrong with Black Widow? Well, first of all, there's an obvious problem here, right? Piracy. Piracy was going to be a problem. Now people can get high quality screen captures right off their TV and share it. Is that a problem? Absolutely, it's a problem. Home viewing. There's a couple of problems with home viewing, and that is this. When a movie has a full theatrical release, people can go see the movie multiple times if they liked it, and the box office benefits, right? So if let's say Black Widow just had a theatrical release, people can go watch it at the movies, they make money. And then if somebody really liked it, then what happens is they go back again. and they bring other people, and now you're getting repeat viewings and things like that. That adds to the box office total as well. However, with this model, there is no multiple box office, because if somebody bought it for $30 at home, they can now watch it 12 times, and Disney's getting no benefit from that. So that's that. But the one that we've never really talked about is PVOD. Rob, what we often talk about is that by Disney putting this thing on Premier Access at home, they're cannibalizing the box office money they could be making. But what we haven't really also considered, that the theater owners have just brought up a very valid point. Not only are they cannibalizing their box office money, they're also cannibalizing a very lucrative after box office VOD sales business, right? Because what would happen is, you know, a movie comes out on PVOD like 3 months later and makes money, right? Everybody gets excited. They remember seeing Black Widow in the theaters. It's been a couple of months. They're all excited. And what happens? They put it on premium video on demand, where you can either through iTunes or through Apple or Google Play or some other service, you can buy the movie or rent the movie, blah, blah. And you're making all this money on this PVOD sales. What we haven't really considered before, and I can't believe we haven't, is that they have just totally cannibalized that very lucrative market. They've totally cannibalized it. And so that's been taken away as well. And if you want to get a sense for how badly did Black Widow do on its second weekend with premium access rentals, it went through the floor. It went through the floor. And the theater owners are quick to point this out. They said, you know, the one time, Disney never once announced how much money on a premium purchase that Mulan made, because it was terrible. I never heard the exact numbers, but I heard it was terrible. So Disney never talked about it. Disney never talked about their home video premium purchases that they got for Cruella. Well, because we heard it was terrible. It was miserable. They did it 3 times. It was terrible. The only time they ever brought it up was when Black Widow generated 2 million sales. And they were really proud of that. But they're not mentioning at all anything about their second weekend sales. They're not mentioning that at all. They're just saying, zip, shh, don't talk about that, because they fell through the floor as well. So NATO and Deadline are basically, and Variety as well has gotten in on this as well, as they're all pointing to, this is a basic failure of the model. It is a basic failure of their premium access model that is going to lead to this thing making far less money than it probably could have. Now, Rob, you and I were talking on the phone last night, and I brought this up too, and I think you agree. I think there is also another non-premium access issue that contributed to Black Widow having such a big second weekend release drop. And I said this with Fast 9 as well. And that is this. I think while we are in this recovery phase, which, by the way, our recovery phase is being paused because people won't get vaccinated. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to you, we can't have nice things. Anyway, but while we're in this kind of phase of recovery, I think people who want to go to a movie are really going out the first weekend. And that's that. I think you're getting a higher percentage of the people who are interested in going to the theaters. They're going to go opening weekend. And I think we're seeing that reflect a little bit. But I also, while I believe that is true, I also believe, you know, I've always thought that this premium model that Disney is doing was ass backwards. And as of right now, Variety is saying that they have heard from their insider sources that Disney has no intention of moving any of the rest of the films for this year to the premium model. I mean, obviously we've got Jungle Cruise coming out. So that's already planned. That's already announced. But a lot of us have been wondering if they were going to start adding more films to that list. Variety is now saying that Disney right now is planning not to move any other films to the premium model list. Rob, I know you read through the Deadline article. It's pretty extensive.
Yeah.
They go into a lot of details on a lot of different things there. And there's a lot to unpack here. For Fast 9, we understood, because generally speaking, I mean, some people at home may have really liked it, and that's awesome. You and I thought Fast 9 was terrible. A lot of people thought it was terrible. So, you kind of get the big drop. Black Widow was well reviewed and very well received by the audience, and it still took this dip. You read the various opinions. You and I have talked about it as well. What is your take on this drop? What caused it, and what do you think the ramifications of it are going to be?
Well, I think there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking here going on, but I have a theory in that one of the things that people aren't discussing is that the perception of the Marvel Cinematic Universe amongst audiences has also changed, in the sense that we had 23 movies, Spider-Man Far From Home obviously being the end. There was something that was being built, constructed, that every part was leading up to this amazing climax, and then Spider-Man Far From Home was sort of the breather that we needed. So you have these 23 movies carefully built over, almost a decade. This movie is unnecessary as far as understanding. I mean, in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the only thing that matters in this movie is the introduction of Florence Pugh, as far as what we've come to love about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that it's this ongoing, developing storyline. And at the same time, we've also had 3 shows, WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now Loki, that have also been expanding this mythology out into various different ways that have not been the same as what we've been getting for the last 10 years. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe itself is undergoing an evolutionary period that we don't quite yet understand. Because like when it first began, it's almost in reset mode. And yet, the 3 shows have not broken through like this way Iron Man 1 did. I mean, Iron Man 1, with the founding cornerstone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, was very exciting. It was a movie that kind of came out of nowhere. They didn't know how well it was going to do. It did extraordinarily well. It made almost $500 million worldwide, and that was right out of the gate. Now, while we've all loved, I've really enjoyed the different Marvel Cinematic Universe offerings since the beginning of the year. They don't have the kind of mass appeal that even a movie like Iron Man 1 had. And then this first movie, Black Widow, is fun to watch for us, but basically it's kind of inconsequential other than introducing Florence Pugh. So I don't think that it has necessarily the wide audience appeal just because it's a Marvel movie, because it's not offering us anything new. I think this is going to go down in history as being anomalous. I'm really curious to see what Shang-Chi does, because it is new. It's the introduction of a character that we don't know. It's a character that's going to move forward in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, Black Widow's dead. I mean, she's gone. Maybe they'll bring her back. But really, did anybody really need to see this movie? You certainly didn't need it to understand what's happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, you will when Hawkeye rolls around and Florence Pugh is introduced there again. And I loved the relationship in Black Widow between Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh. But I'm dubious as to whether the entire movie-going audience, even people that love the MCU, needed to see this movie.
See, the reason I don't agree with that assessment is because I think if that was true, we would have seen that reflected in its opening weekend. But its opening weekend for our post-pandemic era showed a lot of people were interested in Black Widow. And so I just think if what you're saying was the case, that people don't really see it as a necessary film to the MCU and all, then they wouldn't have gone in the first. Then we wouldn't have seen a strong opening weekend. I don't.
Well, the fans go. The opening weekend. I think anybody is going to go to a movie like this. I mean, because you want to see. So all of us fans go to that first weekend. But the thing is, it's everybody else. You've got to get everybody else. Marvel movies have a lot of families will go later, and word of mouth is always really important on these things. Like I would have thought Black Widow, especially the sisterhood, the sisterly relations that Black Widow and Yelena Belova have, was really good. I would have thought more mothers and daughters would have gone to see this movie more in the second and third weekend, like we would have seen Captain Marvel. But Captain Marvel was positioned between Infinity War and Endgame, and it's like, nope, you got to see, you're going to understand her participation in Endgame. So there was an urgency to get out and see that this movie doesn't have.
But see, I disagree with that, because like you just made the point yourself that I believe, how does this tie into the overall MCU means less to the more casual viewers. I think the more casual viewers, which, are the big thing here, like, how does this movie specifically tie into these other four? That means less to them than it does to, like, say, people like us. And she's a very, very popular character amongst them. I don't think that's, I can't be convinced that's a part of it.
But I also do, I think right now also, we're in a bit of a backlash against Marvel. The Marvel shows have not been as decisively hits amongst viewers. There's a lot of divisiveness amongst the fan base as to whether WandaVision, Falcon, the Winter Soldier, and Loki worked as well as we'd hoped. And I also think that they're not nearly as focused. I mean, they've gone off in these really strange directions. WandaVision, for as much as I thought it was audacious and really interesting, it's not exactly this kind of superhero fare people are used to. Certainly not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I thought it was really audacious what it did. Loki went full comic book. And if superheroes are one thing, but Loki was really pushing the boundaries of fantasy and science fiction and multiversal craziness, and not nearly as accessible as the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been. And I'm just wondering if all of that kind of collectively comes together to make people sort of like, I'm not as satisfied by this entertainment as I have been, or something. I don't know. I mean, I think we're going to be studying this for a long time to come.
So guys, the question is, what do you think? I mean, personally, I think you can write this thing off to the faulty premium access thing, the fact that there are much higher quality piracy copies that are now available, the fact that you're not getting repeat viewings, because Rob, with a traditional MCU film, people go weekend 1 and then they go again weekend 2. You're not getting that now because somebody who gets it at home can just keep staying at home because they can just keep watching at home. So there's none of that repeat viewership, all that kind of stuff. Rob brings up a different point of view, that maybe people just perceive Black Widow as an unnecessary film to watch, that maybe there's a bit of a backlash or a fatigue growing with the MCU in and of itself. What do you guys think is at the core problem here with the biggest drop-off ever in a second weekend with a Marvel Cinematic Universe? What are your guys' thoughts? Jump down into the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now move on and start taking your live comments and questions. And how do you get a live comment or question here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. All you got to do is go down into the description of this video and click on that tip link, or you could enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question read on the show or an upcoming companion video if it's appropriate for the show. And of course, you'll be supporting this channel at the same time, and all of us involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for your support. Okay, guys, let's get over to those main topics. And we're going to start things off with main topic, or the topics you guys have sent in. We're going to start things off here with Mike Thompson, who writes, "Hey, John and everyone watching. Do you like mac and cheese?" I do like mac and cheese, actually. "Do you like ice cream?" Oh, I love ice cream. If you answered yes to both of these questions, Kraft has got some excellent news for you. I really, really wish I was joking right now, but it's real. Are they actually making a Kraft mac and cheese ice cream?
Yes.
That sounds like the stuff of nightmares. I'm not going to lie to you. That sounds like the absolute stuff of nightmares. I mean, there's things I love, but no, man. No. What do you think?
John, I got to tell you, my favorite ice cream of all time, I only get it for 2 months out of the year, and it's coming, is Baskin & Robbins pumpkin pie ice cream. Ooh. Bar none, my favorite ice cream of all time. You can only get it in October and November. My entire life, I've been eating it since I was a little kid. People have given me a hard time. They're like, how can that ice cream be good? It is that good. And all my life, people are like, why the hell would you eat that? Now, admittedly, Kraft mac and cheese ice cream might not be something that tickles my fancy right away.
Sounds so good.
But I'm going to try it. I don't even know. By
the way, I've got a brand new favorite ice cream. Like for my favorite ice cream will change like every year or so. Like normally I'm a straightforward good cookies and cream guy, but for the last year or two, I've really been into Haagen-Dazs chocolate peanut butter. The Haagen-Dazs
Ooh.
chocolate peanut butter has been my favorite for the last little while, but I've got a new favorite, Rob. New favorite. I was at the grocery store and I just saw this one. It's a Ben & Jerry's. It's called Ben & Jerry's Vanilla Caramel Fudge. I thought, okay.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
It does sound good. So I looked at the package and thought, okay, that sounds good. I'll give it a try. Dude, sex party in your mouth. It's so good. It's so good. And I ended up ordering Instacart like 4 times in 2 weeks just so they could deliver me a delicious little container of Ben & Jerry's vanilla caramel fudge. It's so good. I really, really like it. Anyway, okay. Sorry, let's get back to other stuff. Next up, we got Marie Seifring who writes, hey, John. I've seen discussions of how episode 6 of Loki explains the time branch scene in episode 3 on Lamentus. In episode 6, Kang needed Loki and Sylvie to find him to reach his goals. If they died on Lamentus, that wouldn't happen. Kang manipulated what showed up on the TVA monitors to ensure Loki and Sylvie were rescued. The rescue was what Kang wanted to happen. He makes the rules. Thanks. I have heard that theory. The problem is I see nothing in the show to substantiate it. So Rob, I don't know if you've heard that theory that Loki and Sylvie, when they were on Lamentus, they weren't actually creating a Nexus event. They weren't actually creating a new variance. It was just Kang the whole time making the monitors at the TVA make it look like that was happening. I have heard that theory. I can't subscribe to that theory though, because nothing in the show itself kind of suggested that was it. What's your take on that?
No, I don't think that's true. I mean, what was happening was their relationship, their budding relationship was itself a Nexus event because it was never supposed to happen.
Right.
So, and if they'd been destroyed as they should have been during that apocalyptic event, it would have gone nowhere. But they were rescued by the TVA, which is odd. But still, I'm telling you, all wackiness going on.
All wackiness. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Marie. Next up, E&A Barth writes, 1 of 5. Okay, buckle in, guys. Here we go. John, I gotta say, I respectfully disagree with you on your explanation of multiverse ending with Doctor Strange 2. Hear me out. Remember, I did not have an explanation for it. I have a theory about it because we have not seen Doctor Strange 2. So I have no explanation. I simply have a theory. Anyway, for Doctor Strange 2, hear me out. You say that just because Civil War ended, that doesn't mean that Captain America goes away, and that's completely true. However, the character of Captain America is not intrinsically tied to the story of Civil War. Well, he kind of is. Anyway, and while it is true that the character of Kang is not intrinsically tied to any one storyline, the character is intrinsically tied to a concept, multiverse. That's a loose interpretation. That's a loose interpretation of that. Anyway, 3-5. The point of Kang is not just that he is a time-traveling adversary, but also that there are infinite versions of him. That's one of the things that makes Kang so interesting and hard to beat. And the only way to have infinite Kangs is for there to be a multiverse. So it wouldn't make sense for the character to stick around if the multiverse is destroyed. Doing so would cut out an intrinsic quality of the character. Too long didn't read this. The symbology is as follows. Kang can only exist with multiverse. That's not true. Kang continues after Doctor Strange 2. Therefore, multiverse continues after Doctor Strange 2. Taking away multiverse takes away part of the character. Tell me why I'm wrong or admit that I've changed your mind. Nah, you haven't changed my mind. But here's why. Listen, you might be right, but I don't believe anything that you just said means that you are right. Okay? Look, to me, again, I am not planting a flag on a hill here. We haven't seen Doctor Strange 2. There's a lot to go. There's a lot of different ways this can go. But my notion, my theory that Kang, you can end the multiverse storyline, which is what I think they're going to do in Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness. What I'm theorizing, totally just speculating as a fan, just like all the rest of you guys. The notion that because in some storylines in the comics, Kang is a multiversal character, therefore, if Kang is to continue, then the multiverse story has to continue. I do not believe that's true at all. And also, you got to remember, this is the TV shows and the cinematic universe. This isn't the comic books. You know, the main thing about Kang is he's a time traveler. I think, Rob, it's fair to say whenever discussions of Kang come up, mostly in comic book conversations, the first thing you think of as Kang is time traveler. He's involved with time. Now, there's other aspects to that as well, absolutely. But that's in the comics. That's not here. This is something completely different. And I would say this, that yes, while they are introducing Kang in a multiversal storyline, I would also submit to you Baron Zemo. You know, Baron Zemo, when he was brought in, the whole purpose of Baron Zemo was he's there to divide the Avengers and the cause of civil war. Well, guess what? That storyline ended. That main purpose for why Zemo was there ended, but that didn't mean it was the end of Baron Zemo in the MCU. And of course, they brought him back in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I'm simply saying that none of what you said excludes the idea that you can end multiverse and still very much have a Kang who still very much has many of, if not all of them, but many of those qualities that make him who he is that do come from the comic book. So yeah, listen, again, I'm not saying they're definitely going to end multiverse in Doctor Strange 2. I can't possibly say that. I don't know. I have a theory, but I don't see anything ruling that theory out. I don't know, Rob, how do you see that?
I mean, it's kind of, look, we've all got theories about what's happening. I mean, I think that all theories should be informed by the big picture. Obviously, we know that Kang is going to be in all of his different guises. I mean, there's the Council of Kangs in the comics, and I think I'm expecting Avengers Forever to be the next Avengers movie, which is a huge Kang storyline. It was a comic that was written by Kurt Busiek, who did Kingdom Come. And right now I don't quite know how it's going to all develop. And I guess as far as theories are concerned, I kind of want to wait and see because we don't have enough I don't have enough information to effectively theorize. But I think it's going to get bad. And not bad like bad. I think that the situation is going to get bad and more dire as we see unfolding in Spider-Man, as we see it unfolding in Doctor Strange, and as we see it unfold. We got 3 big Marvel movies coming that are going to deal with this, and I think it's going to get even worse, and it's going to culminate in Avengers Forever. That's my theory.
So let me ask you this, though. You know, my on a theoretical level, let's say Marvel. Do you think Marvel has a way that you could end the multiverse storyline and say Doctor Strange 2 or maybe something after that? Do you think that means that Kang automatically can't be a character in the MCU anymore? Or do you think that you could still carry him on and use him in other ways?
Oh, I think he's absolutely going to be used in other ways because there's so many, you know, a young Kang, an aspect of Kang was Iron Lad. And as a young Iron Lad, Kang founds the Young Avengers. And they are building up to that. And Iron Lad, that aspect of Kang, founded the Young Avengers to fight against another aspect of Kang. So and Iron Lad could be an ongoing character. They're going to do a lot with this character. And if they go back to what they do, which is being inspired by the comics, Kang has such huge ties to all of their main characters that I think Kang is going to be with us for a long time. And
going all the way back to Rama Tut.
Yeah, right. Who went back and went to ancient Egypt so he could
raise up another character we know.
And Sabanur, Apocalypse. And I could absolutely see Kang. We could see the beginning of mutants in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by showing just that. They would show Kang go back to Egypt and find a young Apocalypse to start to raise him. I mean, we could see that. I think that's an interesting way you're going to start the mutants in the Marvel Cinematic Universe all the way back in ancient Egypt. Could happen.
All right, let's move on now. Next up, thanks for sending that in, Ian. Next up, James Lockman writes, I started watching Mythic Quest. I like Mythic Quest on Apple TV, and it has quickly become my favorite comedy show currently out there. And it has the great F. Murray Abraham, who is just wonderful. Have you watched it? Because after the first episode, the first person that came to mind was you because of your love of the World of Warcraft games. I have not watched the whole first season of Mythic Quest. Me and Ann watched a few episodes and we liked it. Just never got around to keep watching it though. We do plan on it though. And yes, you're right. I mean, clearly they gave it another another fictional name, but clearly this is supposed to be World of Warcraft. That Mythic Quest, which is on Apple TV Plus, revolves around this game company. Think of The Office and Parks and Rec. Instead of a paper company or a Parks and Recreation department, they run a video game. And it's basically a World of Warcraft kind of video game. And it's cute. I like it, actually. And I haven't watched the whole first season yet, but we will get back on that and watch that soon. All right, next up. We've got moviereviews.fart writes, yeah, the cancellation of Lovecraft sucks, but it doesn't compare to when HBO canceled Watchmen. It earned 26 Emmy nominations and 11 wins, marking the first time a comic book adaptation took home Best Series and wins in major categories. Gone too soon. Hashtag season 2, Damon. Well, yeah, but Rob, I think, you and I were talking about Watchmen. There are a couple of things that you can't get around. Number one, not as many people watched Watchmen as you might think. And I remember Deadline ran an article on that it didn't exactly blow up their ratings, as far as how many people actually tuned in and watched it, unfortunately, which is understandable. I mean, it's a little bit of a heady kind of concept. If people didn't know the original Watchmen, it might have been a little bit difficult to get them onboarded. Maybe, I guess, I don't know. But the second thing was simply that they really didn't have anywhere to go after it. That I guess that they didn't feel that they had something good. But I agree. That's another one that kind of is a head scratcher. I loved Watchmen and I loved Lovecraft Country, but if they're not getting the view numbers and if they don't think they have something really compelling for next season, I can get it. I can at least get it, even if I'm not happy about it. Rob, these are two kind of surprise cancellations, Watchmen and Lovecraft. Which one do you regret most? Like as a viewer, which one do you lament most that we're not getting a second season?
Well, the thing about Lovecraft Country, it's based on a novel and they adapted the novel. So to me, I don't necessarily regret that cancellation because I thought Lovecraft Country, finally catching up with it, I thought it was really, really compelling viewing. I mean, I thought really enjoyable, but there's no other book, it ended. And Watchmen, I really did I was adamantly opposed to Watchmen because I'm such a huge fan of the comic. I've read it 30 times. I know it like the back of my hand. And I was, while I objected to a lot of it, I found it very interesting. And coming from Damon Lindelof, that means a lot coming from me because I was primed to hate it. But I really would like to have seen where they were going to take Watchmen. So I have to say, probably Watchmen. I kind of am bummed, but maybe it's okay that those limited series that were designed as limited series remain limited series. Maybe because that's the way they were supposed to be. So maybe it's a good thing we don't have more of them.
Okay. By the way, I just asked in the live chat, I put up a pop quiz in the live chat asking who knows what Rob's shirt is referencing. And the first person to answer was John Uchihia, who wrote in, they got it right, V. Now, Xavier, Murray, Ray, Chipotle, a few others put in the right one too, but good on John, because that's an awesome shirt, Rob, by the way.
This is a deep cut, from 1983, the original Visitors miniseries.
Love it.
Yeah, when I saw this shirt, I found it like it was like on T Fury or something, T Public. I'm like, click. I had to have it.
All right. Next up, we've got Tron who writes. Now, this was obviously sent in on Friday. Tron writes, who wins the box office this weekend, Space Jam or Black Widow? In my opinion, Black Widow. Well, that didn't age right. Black Widow, by the way, I would have guessed the same thing, so don't worry about it. While Space Jam has the nostalgia and the LeBron sexuals going for it, I don't know what the hell that means. The reviews have not been kind. People are still high for the MCU. Well, be that as it may, turns out Space Jam. Now listen, I would have thought it would have ended up being relatively close, but I would have guessed, I wouldn't have put big money on it, but I would have guessed that even though Black Widow was going into its second weekend, I still would have thought it would have come out ahead of Space Jam. Like, I'm just being honest with you, I probably would have guessed that too. I don't think it was going to beat it by a huge margin, not on its second weekend. Obviously, Black Widow's first weekend blows Space Jam's first weekend out of the water, but I thought it would have been relatively close, but I would have guessed Black Widow as well. All right, next up, James Lockman writes, I was thinking the same as you when you said why they were bringing Jennifer Carpenter back to play Deb in Dexter, which, of course, for those of you who missed it, we theorized about this before, Rob, but they've now confirmed it, that they are bringing Jennifer Carpenter back. It is confirmed for the relaunch of Dexter. Anyway, I think she's coming back as a Force ghost. LOL. They should have brought back Sergeant James Dokes as Harry's replacement just to irritate Dexter. But you see, they can't do that because it's not really a ghost that's talking to him. It's a construct of his own imagination. And he will construct in his own imagination the people he think are going to give him sage and wise advice. Because obviously, Rob, in the initial run of Dexter, it was Harry. Right? Harry's Code. And I do hope he comes back. He's been in Black Lightning. The actor who plays him has been in Black Lightning, but I hope he does come back and we get to see Harry in this. But I think, why are they bringing Deb back? Well, it's only two options. One, some kind of flashback. Two, he's going to talk to her the way he used to talk to Harry, who was dead. So, Rob, now that it's confirmed that she is coming back for the relaunch of Dexter, what kind of role do you think it's going to be?
I look, obviously Dexter was getting advice from his dead father in some such a way. I mean, I could see it being something like that. Instead of James Remar, it's Jennifer Carpenter. Or it could be a flashback to a scene that we haven't seen before that informs where Dexter's at as a person. But I could see that he has other people now whispering in his ear, whether it's John Lithgow's character or whether it's Jennifer Carpenter's character and James Remar. Because obviously that's been a part of his thing. And as an evolution of a character, maybe he's getting a little bit schizo in his old age.
Could be. All right, next up, we've got I'm Sexy, Believe Me. John, I see What If differently after the Loki finale. It's the consequence of the Loki finale. New universes, I think it's bigger than we thought. John, over under 20%, we see in Doctor Strange 2 some of those What If iterations in live action. Love your work. Right now, listen, I can only go off of what I've heard Kevin Feige say. And Kevin Feige back at D23, now granted that was a long time ago, but D23 in conversations afterward made it pretty clear. What If is exactly what it was in the comics and exactly what Elseworlds is. It's not connected at all. He said there's no connection between what we're going to see and what they literally are, just fun little stories about what if the MCU had been different. Now, I get it, Rob. Everybody's theorizing since that Loki finale that, now What If is actually going to be real stories about what's happening in this timeline, and we could see these What If characters transfer over and come into a live action thing. And on a theoretical level, you could see why that is. But again, I have to say zero, only because Kevin Feige has said that's not what's happening. And so far, every time we've doubted what Kevin Feige has said, it's actually turned out that he's always just said what he meant what he said. So is it possible? Yes. I really hope they don't, because honestly, I'm not going to lie to you, Rob. I think that would be idiotic. I think it would be stupid. I love the notion of What If and Elseworlds kind of stories because they're What If and Elseworld kind of stories. That's what makes them fun and makes them special. You don't have to tie everything together. That's, quite frankly, I think that's lame, but that's just me. Rob, what do you think are the chances, understanding that, hey, look, with that ending of Loki episode 6, where you see these millions of little strands starting to create off, and, we're getting What If. What do you think would be the chances, if you had to set a percentage, that we're going to see one or two or more of these stories transfer over and actually become canonized in part and live action, say whether it's in Doctor Strange 2 or an upcoming movie? What do you think the chances of that are?
Oh, I think we're going to see some elements of these stories. For instance, Agent Carter. The Agent Carter, instead of Captain America, there's like Agent Carter or Captain whatever, Sharon Carter as a super soldier. I'll bet we see that in What If and in live action.
Okay, so you're thinking Kevin Feige was just misleading us when he said that this stuff isn't connected at all.
No, I think the stories that are being told aren't necessarily going to translate, but I think the characters might.
Oh, so you think unrelatedly? Yeah,
because we already saw like Hot Toys announced last week that they're making Iron Strange. And Iron Strange, it's Doctor Strange in Iron Man armor. Now, that was a concept art piece that was done for Avengers Endgame, and they didn't actually have it in the final film. But I think there's a reason Hot Toys is making the Iron Strange figure. It's great, by the way. And instead of the arc reactor, you see Doctor Strange's Eye of Agamotto logo in there, and it's pretty cool. I could see something like that translating and winding up in both animation and live action. But I don't necessarily think the stories that are being told, because they are what if stories, so they're not canonical stories, just the same way the comic books weren't.
Okay. So let me just make sure I'm understanding you right. Just so basically, let's take the Iron Strange example. We could see Iron Strange in the What If animated, and then we could see an Iron Strange in live action, but it wouldn't be the same Iron Strange as connected to the same story that's just been transferred.
Right.
Over. Okay.
Right, because like in the comics, the What If stories, so many of them ended with the end of the universe. There's some craziness spun off into oblivion. I mean, although I'd love to see, they're not going to do this because they don't have the rights to the characters, but my favorite What If was what if Conan the Barbarian was in the 20th century. And it had a great Bill Sienkiewicz piece of art with Conan with a gun in his hand. And I'm like, man, I would love to see that.
All right, let's move on here. Diego writes, now that we have the first 3 MCU Disney Plus shows released in full, do you think that the pandemic had any effect on the final product we got? In addition, what do you think the upcoming shows will learn from their predecessors? Thank you for all that you do. Well, as far as the answer to the first question about, do I think that the pandemic had any effect on what the final product was? No. Do I think it had an impact on how we got the final product and what they had to go through to get it finalized and all the post-production done? Yes. But I think we probably would have ended with the same final product anyway, basically speaking. As far as, this is the more interesting question, Rob. What lessons do we think Disney has learned and Marvel has learned from the first 3 shows to carry on with their other ones? I think there are 2 lessons that I really hope they take from. Lesson number 1, don't give us filler episodes if you're only doing 6 fucking episodes. Like, Rob, some of my favorite shows of all time have been 22 episode season shows. They're great. Now, and you understand that once in a while you have to have a filler episode, but you can still make filler episodes awesome. You can make filler episodes fantastic because whether they're little side quests or side adventures, whatever. To have only 6 episodes in your season, there's no excuse for having filler episodes. There's just none. So plan out and portion out your episodic unraveling a little bit better. The second thing I think is they got to look at the main wins they've had out of all 3 shows is when their stories are really character-centric. Because look, WandaVision, Rob, was a show about a young woman finding a way to deal with her grief. That's ultimately what it was. It wasn't about a town trapped in a reality-altering dome. It wasn't about an ancient witch. It was about a young woman really trying to deal with her grief. Loki isn't really about the TVA. It's about this individual going through this character transformation and self-discovery and acknowledgement of who and what he is, where he starts off basically wanting to rule the world, ending with one of his final lines being, I don't need a throne. I don't want a throne. Like, that's what that show was about. And when they're really focused on the best parts of Falcon the Winter Soldier too, were with like Sam and Isaiah and understanding the trauma that Bucky is still trying to deal with. Like, when their shows are really character centric, I think that's when they sing. So those are the 2 lessons I think they need to take from their first 3 shows carrying forward. Rob, what would you think are the main lessons that Disney needs to take from these first 3 shows?
Well, I think they have to give us satisfying conclusions. You know, these shows start really strong, and like I've said, I found Loki to be very intriguing and it was very interesting, but I just don't know how satisfying it was. The final episode, as I've said, watching whatever variant you want to call, whatever Kang we're seeing, whether it's Immortus, they didn't define him, He Who Remains. I just thought having our 2 main characters sitting in chairs talking to our character of He Who Remains, who also was sitting in a chair for 15 minutes, to be rather unsatisfying, especially after a show that was very visually interesting and intriguing. And I just felt that was a little bit disappointing. You're in this citadel at the end of time, and we get parked in one room. You know, I would have thought that there would have been some phantasmagorical, what was in that castle? Just, I guess, a boardroom. You know, it was a nice room. But I mean, I want to be satisfied. Like, you know, I can't help but think that even though it was one of the most downbeat endings of any movie ever made, we knew what was coming. But I think the end of Infinity War was one of the more satisfying movies I've ever seen, because one, you get this incredible battle, and then when Thanos wins, I was left gobsmacked by how they did it. You know, I mean, yes, you know, Endgame's coming. You know, it was a cliffhanger like Empire Strikes Back. But man, I was like, my jaw was on the floor when that movie was over, and I want to feel that again. You know, and I feel that, like, WandaVision was so intriguing, and by the time you get to episode 4 and they revealed like what was going on, again, that was a jaw-dropping moment. And I feel that if your biggest jaw-dropping moment happens in the middle of your show, it's kind of anticlimactic. And I just want to see a more satisfying story told, because I've really enjoyed all three to varying degrees. I've liked all three of the TV series, but I feel like they're just not as satisfying as the best of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from a storytelling standpoint. And I know they're a part of the ongoing tapestry of the MCU, but I feel that a story, even though it's within the MCU, it still has to have a satisfying beginning, a middle, and an end. And Marvel's done a pretty good job doing that. Iron Man 1, very, very satisfying. Winter Soldier, satisfying. Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't care if there was a dance off at the end, very satisfying to me. You know, and I was satisfied by the first Ant-Man. And I want that kind of satisfaction from these series.
All right. Hey, we got time for one more with Robert here with us. So let's get that from Isaac Beebe, who writes, I just started watching The Crown. The Crown is a show that is not designed for somebody like me. It is high effing quality television. The Crown is really good if you guys haven't given it a shot. Anyway, I just started watching The Crown and I'm really enjoying it. Churchill is my favorite character in it. My question, though, is who do you think played him better? Jonathan Lithgow in The Crown or Gary Oldman in The Darkest Hour? It's so hard for me to choose. That's not hard for me to choose. That's easy. It was not Lithgow. It was Gary Oldman in The Darkest Hour. I honestly think, and that is taking nothing away from Jonathan Lithgow's portrayal as Churchill in The Crown. It was fantastic. It was awards level. But Gary Oldman, I thought, gave the performance of his life in that movie. Yeah. You know, it was really, now, Rob, going into that movie, I think he was pretty much agreed upon across the board when the topic of conversation would come up. Who's the best male actor out there who does not have an Oscar on his mantle? The definitive answer to that for a lot of people has for a long time been Gary Oldman. This was the movie that got it for him, and it got it for him in spades. It was just insane. Lithgow was great, but I got to say Oldman. Rob, what about you? Who was the better Winston Churchill?
Look, I'm a huge John Lithgow fan, but I got to give it to Gary Oldman too. I mean, that transformation was just stunning. And I loved him in that movie. I loved his portrayal. Yeah. It was uncanny.
Well, listen, Rob, I know we've kept you a little bit overtime here. Thanks for being here. I don't know. I heard some people just as the show was starting saying, why does Rob even sound a little bit better? I'm not going to tell you what it is we're doing, but we're not, after the fiasco last week on Friday, I'm not using Skype anymore. We got rid of using Skype, and we're testing out something a little bit different. And I was nervous that the image wouldn't be as good or the audio wouldn't be as good. But I actually think, Rob, you sound even better today, which, I mean, you've already got those amazing dulcet tones coming out of you.
I know. What can I say?
It's awesome to have you here. Rob, great job as always, man. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. But in the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. And as always, find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
All right, dude. Thanks a lot for being here, man. Great as always. And I'll talk to you later, my friend. Have a good one.
All right. I will see you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. And I'm seeing some people already guessing in the States. Oh, John's using Zoom now. Nope. Zoom doesn't have very good video quality. So I mean, I've always wanted to try using Zoom, but the thing is, it maxes out its video quality. And video quality is pretty bad. So I think this one, I'm not going to tell you guys what it is yet. I think this little thing we just used worked pretty well. And I will look forward to having Rob back on here again tomorrow using the same system. And it's not Microsoft Teams and it's not Discord. Some people asking us, nope, none of those things. We'll cover it another time. All right, guys, we still have some time here. So let's keep going through your live comments and questions, shall we? We're going to keep things rolling here with Never Lose Your Nerd, who writes, I really liked Loki. Coming from somebody that hasn't liked him in the MCU was unexpected. I really enjoyed Sylvie too, and I liked how she crossed him in the end, so he sees how it feels now, and hopefully he is changed. Can't wait to see Conqueror Kang. I mean, yeah, here's the thing though. A lot of us were predicting that we were going to see Sylvie maybe double cross Loki at the end. And sure, she kind of does. But she didn't kill him. Like, right, if it was a true betrayal, as he was talking to her and pouring his heart out, she would have like shoved a knife in his belly. Instead, she opened a portal and sent him to safety, right? So it was a little bit of a double cross, but it wasn't like a full betrayal. But anyway, I was, Loki is not my favorite of the Disney Plus shows so far. Like, I have it behind WandaVision and Falcon the Winter Soldier, but I still thought it was pretty damn satisfying. Yeah, there's that. All right, thanks for writing that in. Never You Lose Your Nerd. Next up, some people are also writing in, John's using Google Meet. No, I'm not. Some people saying, I think you're using FaceTime. No, we're not. Some people are saying, I think you're using Apple FaceTime. No, we're not. So anyway, somebody's asking if I'm using Pornhub Live. Maybe. No, we're not using Pornhub Live. Anyway, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Diego who writes, hey, John and Rob, just missed Rob, unfortunately. I'm a huge MCU fan, and I gotta say that I am just flat out uninterested in a Ms. Marvel show. I just don't really understand who the target audience is for that. Kevin Feige hasn't let me down before, though. Stoked for Moon Knight, though. What are your thoughts? Well, here's the thing, Diego. Who is this for? It's for the reason Kevin Feige, Marvel is the biggest thing in the world, is because they constantly are growing their audience. And the way you grow your audience is by offering new content that maybe some people who are on the fence about trying the MCU maybe never did, but Ms. Marvel will be a show for them. Listen, the people who read the Ms. Marvel comics, like my wife, Anne, I first heard about Ms. Marvel through Anne. Because Anne started bringing home all these Ms. Marvel comics. And she just devoured them. She loved Ms. Marvel. And I remember Anne would ask me, why don't they do a Ms. Marvel movie? Why don't they do a Ms. Marvel movie? This story's incredible. This character's great and blah, blah. And you can see that just like with the age of the character, all that kind of stuff. I think you're going to get, number one, you're going to get obviously the comic fans are going to be interested because it's her. But on top of that, I think now this is a new character that's going to appeal to a whole new group of demographics that are out there. And at the bottom line, it doesn't give one squirt of piss whether it's Doctor Doom. Who gives a shit if Doctor Doom's in something if you write it badly? Look at the last couple of Fantastic Four movies. Doesn't matter if you put Doctor Doom in nothing. That's not going to appeal to anybody if it's not done right. But if you do it great, if you make a great story. Listen, I was asking the same question about Ant-Man. Who are they making an Ant-Man movie for? But guess what? They made a great movie. And by making a great movie, they made Ant-Man now integral to the MCU. And, he's a part of the MCU and all that kind of stuff. And I cannot wait to see Ant-Man 3. Who are they making Ms. Marvel for? Well, they're making Ms. Marvel for the fans of the comics, but also to expand their viewer base. And I think it's a really good move because I'll tell you what, there's not many things that Marvel has coming out that my wife Anne is more excited for than Ms. Marvel. So again, not every character is going to appeal to everybody, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people who are very excited for Ms. Marvel, and I am definitely one of them. And I know my wife is just going crazy to watch that thing. All right, thanks for that, Diego. Next up, Tron writes, one of two. I saw Space Jam 2 and it was a disappointment. And I was disappointed. Yes, I was disappointed too. Just a 2-hour HBO Max commercial. The story was predictable and wasn't that good. Other than bugs, the Looney Tunes had nothing to do here. LeBron had moments, but overall this wasn't good. Better than Michael Jordan in the first one. Where's part 2? Okay, I guess Anonymous is part 2 of Tron. The best part of the film, in my opinion, was Don Cheadle. He was the best part of the movie, actually. His energy and over-the-topness damn near stole the film. Some of the Warner Brothers references were kind of fun. Some were just dreadful, like the Porky rap. I'll tell you what, though. I'm not going to lie to you. When I think it was Daffy who said, Porky is getting ready to rap, which is just cringy. But as he's getting ready to rap, I think it was Daffy who's called him the Notorious P.I.G. I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you I laughed out loud. I audibly laughed out loud. And it was either Bugs or Daffy. I can't remember which one said it, but said of Porky getting ready to rap, the Notorious P.I.G. I'm not going to lie, dude. I laughed pretty hard at that. I thought that was a pretty funny moment. Again, it's got its moments. Anyway, overall, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. Felt more like a commercial than an actual movie. It's perfect for HBO Max. I wouldn't rush to see it in theaters. P.S. Yes, LeBron was a better leader/teammate to Tunes than he was with the Lakers this year. Oh, come on. He is the best. There's a reason the Lakers have a title now because of LeBron. He's a great leader. Anyway, that all said, yeah, man, I'm not going to lie. I thought that the movie was quite bad. As a big LeBron fan, I thought the movie was really quite bad. And you know what? You know what I'm tired of? Like, I hear these excuses that people then make up for. Like, somebody wrote to me on Facebook. They're making these excuses. Well, Space Jam wasn't made for you. Yeah, I get it. There's lots of shows and movies that aren't made for me that are still high quality. And it wasn't made for you. It's okay for a movie to be kind of cheesy and just fun. Oh, I get it. But those aren't like making a good movie or making a cheesy and fun movie are not mutually exclusive terms. There are plenty of cheesy, goofy, just fun movies that are also very high quality. Like, you can do both, right? So just because a movie is cheesy does not mean you should give it a pass for not also being good. And of course, it's movies, it's subjective. If you watch it and you liked it, that's awesome. Great. Nothing wrong with that. Fantastic. But the excuse of, well, it's meant to be goofy. Okay, lots of great movies are meant to be goofy, but they're also made really high quality and made really well and tell a great story and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, don't give me this excuse of, well, it wasn't made for you. And that's just an excuse. That's just making excuses. Now, look, if you liked it, just say you liked it and it worked for you. Just say that the humor triggered for you, that the story about the father and son aspect of it really resonated with you. And if that's true, awesome. That's great. Just say that. Don't make excuses for it, though. But anyway, that's just kind of my take on it. All right, next up. Ninja Fart writes. A Ninja Fart Monkey writes, fun Easter egg. Wanda completes the transformation into the Scarlet Witch at 27 minutes, 50 seconds in the WandaVision finale. At 27 minutes and 50 seconds in the Loki finale, Kang says, we just crossed the threshold. Ooh, I don't believe for a second, Ninja Fart Monkey, that there's actually any relevance to that. But the fact that they both happen, at 27 minutes and 50 seconds, that's actually kind of an interesting little statistic. Probably completely unintentional, but really interesting nonetheless. I'm glad you shared that. Thanks, man. All right, next up. Where are we at here? We are at... Where did it go? We already did Tron. Now we're at My Comic Planet writes, 1 of 3. So I just watched a recent interview with Tara Strong discussing the iconic voice work she has done, and she is a national treasure. She has 604 movie and TV credits. That's incredible. I'm so impressed with her career. For those of you who do not know, Tara Strong is the girl who does the voice of Ms. Minutes and a billion other things. I remember I looked up her IMDb page and it was just like this huge list. She has got a really impressive impressive vocal career. Anyway, I didn't realize how many amazing characters she has voiced. If you were born in the 90s or the early 2000s, this woman voiced the majority of your childhood. With her great performances as Miss Minutes, do you think she could be nominated for an Emmy for outstanding voiceover performance? And have you ever met her before? To my knowledge, I do not believe I have ever met her before. Now, I want to be careful because I have said I have not met somebody before on this show, only to be, DM'd by that person and say, yes, we did. So I do want to be careful. But to the best of my knowledge, I have never. Now, she's also apparently a good Canadian kid, so I very well should damn well know her. But to the best of my knowledge, I have never met her. Could she be nominated for... Well, I don't know. It's always impossible to say this early. Like, there's a long way to go. I mean, they just announced the Emmy nominations for this year, right? So we got a long way to go. It's far too early. I'm going to say I doubt it. Was a little bit too small, but I really did like her work in it. I really, really did like her work in it. All right, next up. We've got... an anonymous viewer who writes, I don't want this to become political, but is it concerning that the amount of COVID cases are on the rise again? I know it's early on, but do think this may delay/affect the industry's plans for fall/winter releases and strategy. Thanks as always. Listen, first of all, only people who want it to be a political issue are the ones who make a public health issue a political issue. Because I got news for you. I know people who are very politically leaning left people who are very responsible, went out, got vaccinated. They took all the right precautions during a pandemic, stuff like that. But I also know people who lean left who is still, just because they're fucking lazy, have not gone out to get vaccinated. They didn't act responsibly, and they're politically leaning left people. I have friends who are politically leaning right people who just treated the pandemic like it was nothing and blah, blah, and 600,000 people died. But guess what? What's not talked about is I also know a lot of politically right-leaning people who were very responsible, who as soon as there was vaccinations available, they went out and got vaccinated. And they acted responsibly to try to protect themselves and protect their neighbors and protect people around them and things like that. It's not a political issue. There are people on the left and on the right who try to make it a political issue. It's not a political issue. It's a straightforward, common sense, listen to science, do the responsible thing issue. And I've seen morons on the left as much as I've seen morons on the right. So so don't come at me with your political leanings. I don't give a shit about your political leanings. But yeah, it's heartbreaking. The number of new cases a day in California have quadrupled from the same time just a month and a half ago. Or just a month ago. Like, we had COVID on the ropes. But and even as new variants were coming, it didn't matter. If everybody gets vaccinated, all this kind of stuff, blah, 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 we're good. But now we're seeing nearly quadrupled already, and the wave is doing this, and surprise, surprise, like 98% of those people coming down with it are the unvaccinated. I mean, quit hiding behind your politics. Quit hiding behind your politics. Go talk to your physician. Go talk to your doctor. And by the way, there are probably some exceptions. There are probably some people with certain medical conditions where maybe that's not really feasible. Absolutely. There are always exceptions. Always are. But I remember when I talked to my doctor and I'm just like, listen, my doctor just laid it out straight. I'm like, get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Anyway, I do worry. I was talking to a friend of mine actually last night. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a filmmaker and in the film industry. And they're now terrified and really worried that new spikes and all this kind of stuff might affect their theatrical release, that they're worried now they may not get a theatrical release. Now, the advantage that we have now than we did like 4 or 5 months ago is now we have at least half of our population is vaccinated. I think it's around half. So that means we're in a little bit better of a position than we were before. But I do worry. Yes, I do worry that my love of being able to go to the movies again is going to get cut short again. The LA County just recently had to reinstitute the face mask wearing, the indoor face masking mandates. And I get it. cases are skyrocketing again, quadrupled the cases. I get it. I'm not mad at them for instituting that. I get it. I'm just mad that we're in a situation that they have to do that. But anyway, in terms of how it may affect what we talk about here, yeah, I am worried that we're not gonna be able to go to the movies again for a prolonged period of time. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but I do worry about it. So anyway, that's just mine. That's just me. You asked, so I answered. You asked, so I answered. All right, next up. Ryan Lohner writes, my mother hasn't seen the Disney Plus Marvel shows and hadn't heard anything about Julia Louis-Dreyfus's role. So she got to first see the character in Black Widow just like they intended. Oh, that's pretty cool. So for those of you who don't know, of course, that for those of you who don't know, Elaine, like obviously we first saw Elaine in Falcon the Winter Soldier. But of course, Black Widow was supposed to be in theaters before Falcon the Winter Soldier aired. So when we see Elaine at the end of Black Widow, that was supposed to be our first introduction. So that's actually pretty kind of cool, Ryan, that your mother actually got to see her in the order in which they originally intended her to be seen. That's actually pretty fun. So I'm glad you shared that. Okay. Next up, we got Definitely Not Tom Hardy writes, one of two. Hey, John. I was watching the Loki finale with my partner, and when Loki and Sylvie were debating whether to take his position or create a multiverse of madness, all I could think of was the title of Doctor Strange 2 and guessed the outcome immediately. Well, yeah, that's true. That's absolutely, they kind of telegraphed that a bit, didn't they? I still love the show, but my partner didn't know the Doctor Strange title and had no idea what Loki and Sylvie were going to do. Does Marvel do a slight disservice by announcing some titles in advance, like Spider-Man Far From Home when he was dusted? I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I mean, you are right. You are right in that, you know, knowing what we knew about Doctor Strange 2, when they were having that dilemma and trying to decide what to do in Kang's office there, we knew what was going to happen because of the title of it, right? But did that take anything away from it? I don't think so. Because, you know, I often go back to it just as a great hyperbole situation. Let's go back to the whole idea of Titanic, right? Titanic is a great hyperbole. It's an extreme example, but it at least paints the picture, right? In Titanic, which by the way, I don't care that, you know, it's all the trend now and it's fashionable to hate on Titanic. Titanic was a great movie. It was a great movie. But Titanic, everybody going into Titanic knows what happens, right? They know what happens. They know that the ship sinks, right? Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Everybody knew that the ship sinks. Did that mean that you couldn't possibly enjoy Titanic? Well, it was the #1 all-time box office movie for almost a decade, or at least for a long time. For many years, and even today is still the #3 all-time. It won tons of Oscars and all that kind of stuff. Audiences loved it. People kept going back to see it again and again and again. You can know what happens in a story if that story is told really, really well. It's okay if you know what the outcome is, if the journey is well executed. So, yeah, I totally agree with you that it may alter how you perceive a certain scene now and again, like that Sylvie and Loki scene in Kang's office. That's a great example, by the way. But I still think it doesn't automatically detract from the experience of it if the journey itself is executed well. So I think you make a good point, but I think it's mitigated a little bit by really great excellence in execution, to quote, you know, Bret the Hitman Hart. All right, excellent. Well brought up, not Tom Hardy. Well brought up. All right. Last one we'll take today comes to us from Anonymous, who writes, John, I just saw your Twitter post about cooking and Aladdin. I saw that hookah, bro. You cannot hide that from an expert smoker like myself. You are caught. Welcome, my brother. There is no escape from the herbal goodness in your brain. Long live Dank John. Okay, so what he's talking about is, let me see if I can bring this up here. I'm not sure that I can. I'm pretty sure I can. Give me a second here. Okay, here we go. So what he's talking about is the other night, we were here at the house and we were doing some cooking, and we had Ray and my friend that everybody think looks like Ben Affleck in the background there. And while we were cooking and hanging out at the house, we happened to put on the live action Aladdin. And I put up this tweet that says, we're hanging out and cooking and watching the live action Aladdin. I don't care what anybody says. I love this movie. To this day, I don't care. I don't care about any of y'all. The live action Aladdin is awesome. I loved that movie. But anyway, but what you can see is sitting there on the table beside Anne is a very expensive, she got a really nice hookah. Now, Anne and Kaori like hookah, but just straightforward regular hookah like you would get in a hookah lounge. That's it. So nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. It is just straight regular hookah stuff that they put in there. I don't smoke hookah myself. Well, I'll take a drag on it once in a while, but I'm not really a hookah guy myself. But yes, there's that. Now, do I have some edibles in my house? Yeah, I probably do. They help me sleep. Anyway, there's that. Okay, I said that was going to be the last one, but let's do one more. Let's do one more here. Next one up comes to us from The Sock, who writes, I went to the comic shop here in Carbondale, got a hard-boiled comic. Wow, nice. Hard-boiled comic bag for $50 when usually they go for 100 or more, and a master edition from Hell by Alan Moore and set during the Industrial Revolution, my favorite period of history. I feel so spoiled. Man, it's always good when you can go into one of the comics. Whenever Ann and I come across a comic shop that we've not been to, we always go in. And every once in a while, it's great when I don't buy individual comics. I haven't bought individual comics for a while. What I really do, at least not physical copies. What I do love buying still, though, in physical copies are the collections. Right? I really like when you get the full collection story in one big volume. And it's really cool. I still love popping into a comic shop and then coming across like, oh, I didn't realize they had a collection for this one, and just buying those big collections. That I still really like doing. So you are a little bit spoiled, my friend. You are. All right, guys, listen. There are still more questions to come from Kevin Rubio, my buddy, My Comic Planet, Ben Rayner, and others. Do not worry, guys. I've got scheduled to do a companion video a little bit later today. I was going to do one over the weekend. I had a couple of issues come up that made it impractical for me to do a companion video this weekend. So I do apologize that there wasn't one this weekend, but we caught up through most here. We're going to have a companion video a little bit later today. Keep your eyes open for that. Don't forget, Robert Meyer Burnett will be back again tomorrow, bringing more of his glory and goodness. But that will do it for us today, guys, for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much, guys, for making this show a part of your day and joining us here. Special thank you to all of you guys who sent in those live comments and questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the John Campea Show. Thank you guys very, very much for that support. Also, don't forget, guys, let me see if I can bring this up here. We also have the John Campea Show podcast, which is available everywhere. It's available on Apple iTunes. It's available on whatever your favorite podcasting app of choice is. So this episode and all of our episodes we put up on audio only format on podcast. So go and subscribe to the John Campea Show podcast. So when you can't be in front of a YouTube channel, whether you're driving or at work or at the gym, you can still follow along with the show. So go and subscribe to that podcast today. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Remember to do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and guys, please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.